Welcome to our morning verse by verse Bible study. We are now at the 26th verse of the 22nd chapter of Acts, and it is basically a record of uh, Luke, who wrote the book of Acts, giving an account of what happened when the Apostle Paul testified before the Jews. He's testifying about his conversion in the Aramaic language to the Jews. And as he talks about his background and how he came to know the Lord, and at one point of time, he says how the Lord told him, "Go now and send you far away to the Gentiles." When the Jews heard that, they got very, very upset because they could not believe that, first of all, the Lord appeared to Paul. Secondly, that he would send him to the Gentiles because Gentiles were actually taboo for Jews. They could not, wouldn't eat with them or mix with them. And it became too much for them. And the big uproar was there, the big riot. And then the Romans realized that there's going to be a big riot. They arrest Paul, put him in the barracks, and then he's been stretched out to be flogged. As he's about to be flogged, we read in verse 25, as they stretched him out to flog him, Paul said to the centurion standing there, "Is it legal for you to flog a Roman citizen who hasn't even been found guilty?" And immediately they get very upset because he's a Roman citizen. You cannot arrest him without flog him, do anything to him without going on trial. Verse 26, when the centurion heard this, he went to the commander and reported it. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "This man is a Roman citizen." And Roman citizens have a lot of rights. And interesting, it's not the first time Paul is saying Roman citizen. Earlier also we read in the book of Acts, 16th chapter, at Philippi, where after he's arrested, after wonderful things happened in the prison, the jailer got saved. When the Romans came to release him from prison, at that time Paul said, "I'm a Roman citizen. Let them come and escort me from the prison. How come you put me in prison without a trial? I'm a Roman citizen." They're all shocked. And we're going to see why this time he says while being arrested, earlier after being arrested, when he's about to be released. Why is that? Let's read book of Acts, 16th chapter, 36 to 40. Nick, please read Acts 16 chapter, 36 to 40, where the Apostle Paul is being released by the Romans. They come there to release him from prison. He refuses to go. Let them come and escort me. How can they arrest me without a trial as a Roman citizen?
The jailer told Paul, "The magistrates have ordered that you and Silas be released. Now you can leave, go in peace." But Paul said to the officers, "They beat us publicly without a trial, even though we are Roman citizens, and threw us into prison. And now, do they want to get rid of us quietly? No, let them come themselves and escort us out." The officers reported this to the magistrates, and when they heard that Paul and Silas were Roman citizens, they were alarmed. They came to appease them and escorted them from the prison, requesting them to leave the city. After Paul and Silas came out of the prison, they went to Lydia's house, where they met with the brothers and sisters and encouraged them. Then they left.
Interestingly, when Paul got arrested in Philippi, he doesn't say, "I'm a Roman citizen." And the reason why he did not say, because he knew something going to happen. If he had been told, he told them Romans, he wouldn't have been arrested, and the jailer would not have been saved. The jailer got saved only because Paul was put in prison. At midnight, he sing hymns to God. You know this whole story. We did it 16th chapter of Acts. So after jailer got saved and what God's purpose was done, then when they came to release him, he said, "No, I will not go. Let them escort me." Whereas here, while being flogged, about to being flogged, he said, "I'm a Roman citizen," because there's nothing, no jailer to be saved in this case. So that's the purpose why we go through different experiences in life. And now, at the right time, Paul very wise that way. He knew when to say Roman citizen. He knew when to speak in Aramaic. In fact, when he spoke to the Jews, he spoke in Aramaic. Aramaic was the colloquial language. He could identify with the Jews when he spoke Aramaic. At the right time, he will say, "I'm a Pharisee." And I'll talk about that a little later. When the Pharisees are there, he said, "I'm a Pharisee." And he made to the division between the Pharisees and Sadducees. And the Pharisees support Paul, Sadducees are opposed to Paul. And he, at the right time, uses God's wisdom to know what to say and when to say. So what happened then? Let's go on to verse 27. The commander went upon asked, "Tell me, are you a Roman citizen?" Yes, I am, he answered. Then the commander said, I had to pay a big price for my citizenship. But I was born a citizen, Paul replied. The commander had to pay a big price for citizenship. In those days, when you have a lot of sum of money, you can buy citizenship. Even now, certain countries, when you invest in countries, a lot amount of money, you get citizenship. So he said, I had to pay for my citizenship. How come you got a citizenship without paying anything? He said, I was born a Roman citizen. And Paul was born in Tarsus, Cilicia, part of Cilicia, province of Cilicia, and he had Roman citizen. So was Saul, so was Silas, even though he was a Roman citizen. Whereas, interestingly, the Lord Jesus Christ was not a Roman citizen. The Lord Jesus Christ was not a Roman citizen. Interesting, isn't it? And so Paul, at the right time, uses this identity as a citizen to deal with the situation at hand. Verse 29. Those who were about to question him withdrew immediately. The commander himself was alarmed when he realized that he had put Paul, Roman citizen, in chains. Verse 30. The next day, since the commander wanted to find out exactly why Paul was being accused by the Jews, he released him and ordered the chief priests and all the Sanhedrin to assemble. Then he brought Paul and had him stand before them. Now, the commander has a problem. If he has to arrest him, there must be a reason to. There must be a charge sheet against him. He said nothing against the Roman law, and the Jews claimed that he broke the Jewish law. They were jealous of him, basically. When he said that Lord has called me to go to Gentiles, that was too much for them. So the commander wanted to find out what has he done, why such a big riot he created. Wherever he went, he created a riot because he was standing for the Lord. He was curious to find out. And since he knew that the Jews complained against Paul, he wanted to find out from the Jews what crime Paul had committed. So he called Sanhedrin, and who else is called? Chief priests and all the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin actually is a group of 71 people, 71 leaders, elders in Jerusalem. This Sanhedrin is a Jewish ruling council. Why 71? 70 plus 1. Because the Old Testament time, when the world became too difficult for Moses to handle, the Lord told him, choose 70 of your elders. 11th chapter of Numbers, story, verse 1 to 28. Choose 70 people of known to be elders. I will take a spirit upon you and put upon them, and they will also judge Israel along with you. So 70 elders plus 1, Moses. So 71 was retained by the Jews traditionally to be the Jewish ruling council. So the commander called the Sanhedrin and the chief priest for them to listen to what Paul had to say, his defense before the chief priest and the Sanhedrin. Let's go on. What is that chapter? Paul looked straight at Sanhedrin and said, my brothers, I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day. Opens by saying, my brothers. He's calling them brothers. I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day. At this, verse 2, at this, the chief high priest Ananias ordered those standing near Paul to strike him on the mouth. In other words, how can he say, and done duty to God to all not good conscience? The Jews thought anyone who believes Jesus is the Messiah, they're all misguided, and they put out of synagogue, and they lost their status in society. And here this man says, full my duty to God, all good conscience this very day. And the high priest orders the people to slap Paul, to strike him on the mouth. Then Paul said to him, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. He's telling the high priest, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. You said that to judge me according to the law, yet you yourself violated the law by commanding that I be struck. Now, he did not know that he was the high priest. Nowadays, the people in very high positions in the churches, many of the churches, they wear very colorful dress, purple color or maroon color with gold embroidery and all kinds of things, you can know immediately he's a bishop or archbishop or whatever. Chief priests also those days used to wear those dresses. But he was probably in the mufti. He's not wearing the uniform of a chief priest. So Paul did not know he was a chief priest. And he says, he calls him a whitewash wall. And the people then tell him, those standing near Paul said, you dare to insult God's high priest? Look at Paul's response immediately. Verse 5. Paul replied, brothers, I did not realize that he was the high priest. It was written, do not speak evil about the ruler of your people. See how beautifully he changes completely. Paul obeyed God's word. Old Testament says in the book of Exodus, 22nd chapter, verse 28, don't blaspheme God and don't curse leaders of your people. Don't curse them. Paul remembered that. He says, I'm sorry, I did not know he was high priest. Paul had to give respect to the position this man had, the position he had, the standing he had as high priest. And since God's word says, don't curse those in high positions in authority, immediately Paul said, I did not know he was a high priest. For it's written, do not speak evil about the ruler of your people. The Old Testament says, the word used there is, do not curse. Very often I told you, when I do on curses, teaching on curses, the different kinds of curses. There are curses that people use to put on people to using the occult world. Occult curses, casting spells, witchcraft, sorcery, that's all curses. Plus curse of the law. Also, speaking ill of people is cursing. Speaking bad of people is cursing. And here Paul refers to this man as whitewash wall. And is questioning him. Gold struck a whitewashed wall. Then he realized he's a high priest. He said, I'm so sorry. I did not know he's a high priest. For it's written, you should not speak evil about the rule of your people. So it doesn't matter whether the ruler did something wrong or not. For the position he holds, don't speak against him to anybody else. Don't curse him or speak ill of him. You can correct people one-to-one, but not talk about them to others. Immediately, Paul changes his perspective of this high priest who asked people to strike him in the mouth. All because he said, I fulfill my duty to God with all good conscience this very day. Verse 6. Then Paul, knowing that some of them were Sadducees, the others Pharisees, called out in the Sanhedrin, my brothers, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. I stand on trial because of my hope, the resurrection of the dead. See how clever he is. Very, very clever. He's saying, I'm a Pharisee, son of a Pharisee. He knew fully well the group consists of both Pharisees and Sadducees. There he says, I'm a Pharisee, son of a Pharisee, and also I stand on trial because of my hope in the resurrection of the dead. Now the Sadducees don't believe in resurrection, Sadducees. What's the difference between Pharisees and Sadducees? Pharisees believe the entire Old Testament. The law, the prophets, Psalms, Proverbs, wisdom literature is called wisdom literature. They believe the entire Old Testament. Sadducees don't believe in the entire New Testament, Old Testament. They believe only the first 5 books. In the first 5 books, there's no reference to resurrection. Only in the book of Psalms, chapter 16, verse 10, read about resurrection. So the Sadducees, because they don't believe in the rest of the books apart from the first 5 books, don't believe in resurrection. That's the fundamental difference between Pharisees and Sadducees. Pharisees believe in the resurrection, Sadducees do not. So here Paul says, I'm a Pharisee, son of a Pharisee. Because I believe in resurrection, I'm on trial. Immediately Pharisees take Paul's side. And there's division between the Pharisees and Sadducees. Simply because the Pharisees identified themselves with Paul. Oh, he's one of us. He believes in resurrection. We also believe in resurrection. And see how immediately there's a division among them. And Paul, very, very clever, worldly wise also he was. God's wisdom supersedes worldly wisdom. And then he says about how he's a Pharisee. And by the way, let's look at the credentials Paul has as a Pharisee. You know, for the Jews, from a Jewish point of view, he had all the credentials of a very ardent, zealous Jew. And he wrote about that to the Philippians. Could you please read the Philippians chapter 3, 5 and 6, Nick? I'm talking about the credentials that Paul had as a staunch Pharisee, someone who has all the qualifications of a very zealous and ardent Jew in Israel. Philippians chapter 3, 5 and 6.
Circumcised on the 8th day of the people of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews, in regard to the law, a Pharisee, as for zeal, persecuting the church, as for righteousness, based on the law, faultless.
So all the credentials he's got as a Pharisee. 7 credentials. Circumcised on the 8th day of the people of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, Hebrew of Hebrews. They got law of Pharisee. They got zeal, persecuting the church. They got righteousness, faultless. All the credentials. So he was very much, as a Pharisee, he was looked up to all the other Pharisees. Now he's become believer in Jesus. That's a problem for them. He believes that Jesus is the Messiah. But now there are these two groups of people, both don't get along with each other. And the one common, they thought one common enemy they've got, that is Paul, who put his faith in Jesus as the Messiah. And when he says, I'm to believe the resurrection, immediately the division between Pharisees and Pharisees. Pharisees take up Paul's side. So let's go on. Verse 7. When he has said this, a dispute broke out between the Pharisees and Sadducees. And the assembly was divided. All because Paul said, I'm a Pharisee, son of a Pharisee. Verse 8. Sadducees say there's no resurrection. There are neither angels nor spirits, but the Pharisees acknowledge them all. Let's go a little deeper and see why Sadducees don't believe in resurrection. I told you, it's not found in the first 5 books about resurrection. It's found in the book of Psalms, chapter 16, verse 10. Go to read that also, Nick. Psalm 16, verse, let's read from 8 to 10.
Yeah, Psalms chapter
16, verse 8 to 10.
16, verse 8 to 10. I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Therefore, my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices. My body also will rest secure, because you will not abandon me to the realm of the dead, nor will you let your faithful one see decay. You make known to me the path of life.
That's all. That's till the point one.
Yeah,
Now,
sorry.
this is written by David. David talks about, you will not abandon me to the grave. I'll go to the grave, you won't abandon me to the grave. Now let your Holy One see decay. The faithful one actually refers to the Holy One. You won't let the Holy One see decay. Who's the Holy One? The Messiah. Messiah will not decay. His body will not decay, to be raised to life. That is quoted by the Apostle Peter to testify before the Jews who come to Jerusalem. The 2nd chapter of Acts. Read that also. 2nd chapter of Acts, verse 24 talks about how it was impossible for death to hold the Messiah. Verse 24 to 27. 27 was the actual quotation from Psalm 16, verse 10. Here, Peter is testifying before all the Jews who come to Jerusalem, but what happened after on the day of Pentecost. Read that also. Acts chapter 2, 24 to 27. Testimony of Peter to the Jews who had come to Jerusalem on the day of Pentecost.
But God raised him from the dead, freeing him from the agony of death, because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him. David said about him, I saw the Lord always before me. Because he is at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Therefore, my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices. My body also will rest in hope, because you will not abandon me to the realm of the dead. You will not let your Holy One see decay.
Same passage. Peter is quoting how David spoke about it in Psalms, that he will not let the Holy One see decay, and you will not abandon me to the grave. He'll be raised to life. Even David will be raised to life, because Christ did not decay. So that's a reference to resurrection in the Old Testament. The Sadducees do not believe in that. That's why the division between Pharisees and Sadducees. Let's go on from that. I hope you understand why they don't believe in resurrection. They don't believe in Psalms. Verse 9. There's a great uproar. And some of the teachers of the law who were Pharisees stood up and argued vigorously. We find nothing wrong with this man, they said. What if a spirit and angel has spoken to him? Look at how they changed completely. The moment the Apostle Paul, I'm a Pharisee, immediately they all joined with him. The Pharisees. He's one of us. Maybe he believes in Jesus the Messiah, that different thing altogether. When it came to Sadducees, they took up Paul's side. And then the big dispute came between these two groups. And they said, we find no basis for anything against man, nothing wrong with this man. What if a spirit angel has spoken to him? Sadducees don't believe either spirits or angels. So total division between these two groups. Verse 10. The dispute became so violent that the commander was afraid Paul would be torn to pieces by them. He ordered the group troops to go down and take him away from them by force and bring him into the barracks. Verse 11. The following night, the Lord stood near Paul and said, take courage. As you testified about me in Jerusalem, so you must also testify in Rome. Lord has confirmed. See, a long time back, not long, how many months back, we do not know. When he's going to Jerusalem, they told him, don't go to Jerusalem. The whole church advised him, Caesarea, I think it was, Caesarea. Don't go there. Holy Spirit warned him, Lord, things going to take place. He says, no, I will go. But here God is confirming. Lord confirmed to Paul, as I said about being in Jerusalem, testify in Rome. That is why later on we're going to see, when he goes before King Agrippa, who wants to hear about his testimony, the governor Festus tells King Agrippa about Paul, and King Agrippa says, I want to hear him. Let me hear him. And then he appeals to Caesar. What is the appeal to Caesar? Is it depending upon Caesar? No. Because Lord already told him, as testified about me in Jerusalem, we shall testify about me in Rome. Because the Lord told him to testify about me in Jerusalem, in Rome, that's why he appeals to Caesar. Later on we'll see how he appeals to Caesar. And if you look at that particular verse, you begin to wonder, why is he depending upon a man? Is he depending upon Caesar? Why does he want to appeal to Caesar against whatever the people accuse him of? That's because he had to go to Jerusalem. He had to go to Rome. The Lord told him to testify in Jerusalem, he also testify in Rome. That's why he appeals to Caesar. Later on we're going to see that. Verse 12. The next morning, the Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves the oath not to eat or drink until they had killed Paul. They're so vehement against him. All because, first of all, he believed in Jesus, and secondly, he said, Lord appeared to me and told me to go to Gentiles. That was too much for them. They want to kill him because of that. Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves the oath not to eat or drink until they had killed Paul. More than 40 men, verse 13, more than 40 men involved in this plot. They said 40 people, don't eat or drink till you kill this man. Verse 14. They went to the chief priests and elders said, they've taken a solemn oath not to eat anything until they have killed Paul. To go to the chief priests. They are also part of the conspiracy. Now then, you and the Sanhedrin petition the commander to bring him before you on the pretext of wanting more accurate information about his case. They're ready to kill him before he gets here. So they make a conspiracy, form a conspiracy, telling the chief priest and call the Sanhedrin, you and Sanhedrin, make a petition to the commander. And as they bring him for trial, as he comes here, we are ready to kill him before he gets there. That's the plan. You ask commander to send him to you, find out more about what he's up to. Before he gets there, we will kill him. We won't eat or drink till we kill him. Verse 16. But when the son of Paul's sister heard of this plot, he went into barracks and told Paul. See how wonderfully the nephew of Paul, maybe a young man, came to know about it. Lord ensured that the nephew came to know. He used the nephew of Paul to save Paul. Anybody God can use. So he went to barracks and told Paul. Nephew tells Paul, they're going to kill you. They make a plan to kill you. Then Paul called one of the centurions, verse 17, and said, take this young man to the commander. He has something to tell him. So he took him to the commander. So now, when Paul heard from his nephew about the plot to kill him, he called the centurion. Take the young man to the commander, what did he say? Take the young man to the commander. He has something to tell him. So took him to the commander. Centurion said, Paul the prisoner sent for me, asked me to bring this young man to you because he has something to tell you. Doesn't know what it is. All that Paul said was, he has something to tell commander, take him to the commander. Centurion took this young man to commander. He was a young man, his nephew. Verse 19. Commander took the young man by the hand. Drew him aside and asked him, what do you want to tell me? What do you want to tell me? Verse 20. He said, the Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul before Sanhedrin tomorrow on the pretext of wanting some more accurate information about him. Don't give in to them, because more than 40 of them are waiting ambush for him. They take an oath not to eat or drink until they have killed him. They're ready now, waiting for your consent to the request. The commander has a soft corner for Paul. Why? Because Paul was a Roman citizen. That's the key. He would take the side of the Roman citizen, even against the Jews, simply because he knew that without trial, a Roman citizen cannot be put in prison. Now here the question of being killed. He wants to rescue Paul. Commander wants to rescue Paul. Verse 22. The commander dismissed the young man and cautioned him. Don't tell anyone that report this to me. Don't go and tell anybody. And he has made a plan now. What a beautiful plan he makes, the commander. To smuggle away Paul to Caesarea. Those 40 people wanted to kill him before he got there. The young man came to know, Paul's nephew, goes to tells Paul that. Paul does centurion, take him to the commander. Commander telling the young man, don't tell anyone about this. He's making a beautiful plan to ensure Paul escapes death from these 40 different people. Now, the reason why Paul could not have been arrested at that point of time, or killed at that point of time, because God had told him long time back when he got converted. He told Ananias, this man is my chosen instrument, carry my name before Gentiles, and their kings and the people of Israel. Acts 9:17. So Paul knew he will not die till he goes before a king. Went before King Agrippa, he went before Caesar. So now there's no question of him being killed. So he said, don't worry, take him to a commander. And commander God used to rescue Paul from the 40 people who had taken a vow not to eat or drink till they killed Paul. The plan was, as he came to the commander for trial, or rather, when they come to Sanhedrin and the chief priest, but while they're on a journey, they would kill him. So here the commander made a beautiful plan, and we will look at that on Monday when they come back, how he sends him away to Caesarea, and wonderful things happen in Caesarea. And ultimately, Paul had to go to Rome, where he went before Caesar. It doesn't say Bible what exactly happened to Caesar, but that's where he ultimately went to be with the Lord. So we'll stop here at this point of time. We have to come to the 22nd verse, and then when the verse talk about Paul transferred to Caesarea. God bless you all, and we'll meet again on Monday.